Hi, today we're going to talk about summarizing. This is something that's a pretty common assignment that you might get asked to do in your college writing class, but it's a common assignment in a lot of other college classes as well. Summarizing just means that you watch something or read something, and then you sum up the major points, the big ideas, and put it in your own words to condense it and make it a little bit shorter. If you haven't already learned what a main idea is or how to read and look for a main idea and major points, then you might want to watch the other video about that before you start this one, because I'll reference it a few times in this video. To explain what a good summary is and what a bad summary is, I sometimes tell my students this. Imagine that you missed a day of class and you asked your friend or classmate to tell you what you missed. Instead of telling you the important stuff that you were looking for, they say, okay, the teacher showed up at 10:58. He was wearing brown pants and a white shirt. He took out a blue marker and wrote in cursive on the far left-hand board. You would probably say, okay, stop. That's not helpful at all. And the reason for that is that it's a pretty bad summary. Your friend's just telling you all of the minor details, but none of the important points. So this is exactly what we're trying to avoid when we write a summary of something. We want to let go of all of those minor details, and we want to focus on the main ideas. And so this is why summary starts with reading and annotating. So here's an image of the text that I've chosen today. It's called Novel Finding, and it's about how reading fiction helps improve empathy. And I've just annotated it a bit, which is just a fancy word for making notes on it. I've done this one in a Google Doc. So you can see that I've marked the main idea, which is in the first paragraph, and then each major idea, which are just those ideas that are helping support the big overall point. With each of these, I've put a little bit of it in my own words so that I know what I'm going to reference when I go back to summarize it. If we look at the next slide, you can see that I've made a list in a separate document of what those major ideas were. So for each place that I annotated and summed something up in my own words, I just wrote a little sentence. And this itself isn't a summary yet, because it's missing some important things that a summary would have. But it's a nice list to start with, so I know what information I'm going to include in my summary and what information I'm going to leave out. So before we look at the summary template, let's just take a look at a list of do's and don'ts, or really the do's, of a really good summary. So there's 4 things here, and we're going to apply all of these things when we practice our own summary. Always introduce the author and the piece that you're summarizing in the first sentence of the summary. This is really important because it signals to your reader that you're not talking about your own point of view, you're summarizing someone else's. Always use signal phrases is number 2. A signal phrase is something that I'll explain a lot more as we look at the template, but it's just a way of starting or finishing a sentence that lets your reader know again that you're talking about someone else's point of view, not your own. 3, always refer to an author by his or her full name the first time that you mention them, and then their last name after that. So you could also use a pronoun like he, she, or they to refer to that author in your signal phrase so you don't repeat yourself too much. But remember that with names, we tend to call our friends and family by first names, but not authors. We have to use their last name in our summary. And finally, you always punctuate a title a certain way. For a book title like Exit West, you would put it in italics. But for an article title, like what we're summarizing, you would just use quotation marks and put it around the entire title so it sets it apart from the rest of the writing. So let's take a look at our template. The template outlines for us how we're going to start each sentence, and the blanks demonstrate where we're going to put our own words or maybe the author or the title of what we're summarizing. So you can see here, I've left a blank for the type of work, like article, a blank for the title with the quotation marks included, and another blank for our author. This means that we definitely start out our summary right. We give our reader a good idea of what we're doing, we're summarizing someone else's ideas, not our own, and then every sentence after that has usually a transitional word as well as a nice signal phrase. So first she, then she, on the other hand, she concludes. These are all the kind of words that we're going to use to signal that we're still summarizing and to help us get started for how we would include those list of major points that we made earlier. So let's take a look at our finished summary. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but you can pause it and take a look at how it turned out and how it compares to that list. But I will point out that everything that's in bold in the article, the verb explains, First, Chia says, Chia concludes that. These are all examples of things that we took from the template, and then all of the rest of the words are my own words, my way of sort of summing up in a shorter version what this author said. So to conclude, I'm just going to give you a list of a few things to always remember when you're summarizing. The first is don't forget about the example of, your friend telling you about class and giving you the details. Focus on the big stuff, not the small stuff, and stay focused on those major points. Next, most sentences in a summary just need those signal phrases. This is where the template comes in handy. Go back and look at it. Remember that you always have to signal that you're summarizing. Next, remember that a summary should really be in your own words. If you do want to quote something, that's totally fine, but you might want to go back and watch the quote sandwich video to figure out how to do it properly. Make sure that you're giving the author credit and that you're making it clear that you're quoting when you are. Finally, remember that this first sentence is key. Every time that you summarize, you want to let your reader know what you're doing. Say the author's name, say the title, make it clear that there's a main idea that you're trying to explain. So that's it for the summary video. Remember that like anything, summary takes lots of practice. So give it a shot, use the template, reference this video if you need it. Good luck.